Hello, team. Welcome back to another Line War cast. This is your map today, and it's probably the weirdest map we've had ever played on this series. And why so? Because we have industry that this one down in the bottom, the road back to the town it's connected to, is spans this entire peninsula, so you have to control all of that and this mountain range through this gas, and then not even this town because that would be silly. No, actually, it does do this one. And the reason I'm confused as to why it would go there is because if you look down here, the same thing happened on these other industries. So for you, those of you that don't know, this is a randomly generated map with rules. Generally, it works out decent. We can see like on a normal city, it's just that here's the town, the three industries that are connected, and then you can upgrade that town once you have all three industries and have a town there built there, and then it turns into a city, gives you 10 territories worth of income. If I haven't rambled enough, this is where the players generally are deciding to go on this map. We can see there's all the oils in the bottom, generally, all the economy. I hold like a trade route here, a quick trade route, if it wasn't a meme of enough of a map. So Imphenzia is going on the right side in red, and Romad Quantum Scientist, who will be in blue, I don't know where they're going yet. We have not seen, but we will see the outline in a second. Okay, so here it is. Imphenzio's on the right and bridged this, so they picked these land territories and then also the water, which allows you to then pick the land on the other side. And Romad did the same, but to the left. And there's the first barracks for Imphenzia on the uppermost land mass. Not really sure what Romad's plan is here. Barracks on the far left side. And I was gonna say, I assume Imphenzia is gonna make a barracks on this landmass too. Airport barracks out of Romad in the forest. Neither player will know exactly where the other one spawned right now. And a dock for Romad. This is the vision for Romad. So you get the idea, and it would be similar for Imphenzia. You get the idea. Neither player can see the other one right now. I feel like this, and this is a very, very quick submarine pen. So all this water is actually connected. So subs could shut down whatever navy Imphenzia might put out and be super stealthy. Subs, of course, you can't see them unless you have an interceptor, which is like a fighter jet or a destroyer boat close to it, or enough units. A clump of units grant detection in this game as well. Airports from Romad and the transport boat. This really makes sense because Romad clearly is going to want to get on the southern part of this landmass. I mean, technically they already are, but even to just go across and get it done quicker, there's a whole trade route here, and then with such a naval presence, Romad should be able to hold that relatively well. I love Imphenzia's start here because it's all economy and 3 barracks, which is a generally greedy play. Like in industry, the rule of thumb, it takes like 7 minutes to kick in game, so it's 6 minutes into the game. And as long as Imphenzia is not attacked for, the next 7 minutes or gets into a position where this doesn't end up paying off, like the investment, then they'll be okay. And with one helicopter, which is now turned into strikers from Romad, pardon me, this could be annoying. 2 barracks is enough to be able to deal with this, and we can see that Imphenzia has a lot of money, so a quick factory potentially could be a thing that we're about to see. Income-wise, Imphenzia's at 388, and Romad, who is losing money in general, is at 308. This subpen and dock and an airport is very expensive, and unfortunately for Romad, they won't have any gas, especially moving this transport boat around. And here's the factory. I wonder what units come out of this. Potentially SAMs. I would expect SAMs, but I'll be very interested to see if it's not SAMs from Imphenzia. Quick cruiser as a follow-up from Romad, which is certainly going to get naval supremacy. But part of the problem is if Imphenzia doesn't want to build navy, that's a lot of money. Romad's now in the green. on income, but of course, Imphenzia's money is ramping up at 444, and there was a economy investment. And I wonder why, if Imphenzia's doing this to get these infantry out so that they can cap, or was it to cut off Romad from getting a sneaky 1 or 2 infantry up to the top? Not really sure. But regardless, I think Imphenzia feels pretty calm in a position like this. So Romad's going to get a landing force across, which is going to see this airport, which is going for, I think these are interceptors. Interceptors are helicopters. Whereas Romad is, I guess, actually alternating between strikers and helicopters, which is an interesting play, and I certainly wouldn't be able to keep up with the micro of that. 4 infantry, so let's see where Romad, like the vision. Unfortunately, when I switch players, the viewpoint changes, but okay, so this is definitely spotted. Another factory from Imphenzia to back this up. With interceptors, interceptors are great at defending islands because they spot away any strikers, they spot away any bombers, they have great detection. In this fight, I think ultimately with another barracks, Imphenzia is going to be okay. Romad still hasn't got down to this part of the island. These infantry, unfortunately, are relatively slow, just because there's so much land to cap behind, like, before they get to that point. Top right, Imphenzia is now starting to cap. At 480 economy, Imphenzia is actually not as ahead as they were before. And surprisingly enough, this was a lot closer than I thought, but there's no way that, well, if they keep just one-shotting the infantry. Yeah, okay, so Romad gets cleaned up. Unfortunately for Romad, if this was a little bit quicker, this might have actually worked. That could have been an airport snipe. Maybe it was too close. But interesting play nonetheless. Romad's got 2 subs here, which will be able to cap the ocean, but they're very gas intensive. So potentially the subs would be better served over on this side of the map. But again, they're very gas intensive, and Romad doesn't have a first gas yet, which is really stalling the momentum of what Romad's trying to do. Because I think Romad has a very good like strike force of helicopters and strikers. If they can, like, if all 4 of these planes were flying, they would be able to actually, like, they'd be able to kill that interceptor just by numbers. If this was a missile boat, that'd be huge, and I think this is a missile boat that Romad is starting to build. This army for Imphenzia is going to be able to make a push. Especially if Romad can't lift off any planes. At this point, I think Imphenzia is dealing with it. The question is, can one transport boat reinforce this position quicker than 1 barracks? Interceptor taking out helicopters on the ground, super easy. 528 income for Imphenzia, who's now gone for their first gas. And this was, okay, so this was an intentional breakout to the top right, is what it looks like. Which is gonna pay off huge. I mean, this is a decent, more than decent amount of the map and total money that you could make. I think Romad's gonna be in trouble if there's more subs being built. Although, saying that, Romad's got the money back in order, making about 150 a minute, which is about the same. I mean, Imphenzia's making a little bit more. This is what these infantry are like, is great. To just run them off to the side now that Imphenzia is trying to deal with this. Although Imphenzia sees it clearly. And over time, this is going to become a problem for Romad. Because this has been a factory and 2 barracks this whole time that's been producing units, whereas Romance has two barracks, but a lot of them have just ended up going over here. 612 income for Imphenzia, 488 for Romad, who is out of gas. 1 single thing of gas. Perfect. Okay, so this is huge for Romad to be able to get these strikers and helicopters. off of the airport, and I assume the play for Romad is to send them across. We can see the blue line is where strikers can go, and the green line is helicopters, the range from the airport. And 2 strikers and 2 helicopters, which could ultimately just move over here to get in range, I think would be able to snipe that, but this is becoming more and more of a problem for Romad. I almost feel like a factory is what's needed. But Roma's doing a great job to multitask this, trying to take all this land, which is definitely annoying. Great backstab here from Romad. If that if they can pull this off, this is SEAL Team 6 on potentially these factories. Subs finally moving. But for Romad then moving 3 subs. I like that there's no more subs on the way. That's good. 3 subs and then a full airport of planes and boats is unfortunate. Like, it's not going to be enough for one airport or one refinery. 3 interceptors aren't the best things to try to kill a transport boat, but that being said, a transport boat isn't the best thing to be trying to kill gas, and I respect both players equally as much for that interaction. 524 income for Romad and 742 for Imphenzia, so this is starting to run away, especially since Romad can't contest this top right. These boats are huge. This can end up being big because it will cut off this airport. If some missile boats can get in between this airport and anything important for Romad, it would be very good if this land force wasn't potentially going to kill the base anyway. Love this dig in, this attempt. Imphenzia is on top of it, as we can see by the line commands dropping down. But for, you know, some people could get on that island and then the other player would just forget about it because there's a million things going on because it's Slime War. I don't think Romad knows. Yeah, this is very close. The barracks and the factory, which I think is definitely needed. But unfortunately, it's they might even just get sniped before they're built. No, this is probably enough. Yeah, Imphenzia gets there quicker than I can and starts doing retreat moves. These boats, I don't know what they're putting in the fuel tanks at this point to just inch them forward to here, but they will get that gas ultimately because 3 interceptors and 2 strikers are not going to be able to kill this many boats, like, quickly, at least. Barracks in the top right for Imphenzia, which I love. Cementing that macro lead, which is relatively substantial at this point, like 814 income for Imphenzia, and what did we just see? 540 for Romad. This is totally cleaned up. And there's a chance if Romad could make something work in the bottom and contest that while capping the top left, economy-wise, Romad could get back in this. Romad has decent money. I think potentially regaining this field is going to be big for Romad. We can just go big picture, because all we know in the top right, Imphenzia is capping without being contested at all. We missed the gas snipe on the boats on the right side of the screen, so this airport for Imphenzia, nothing is flying from it. This noise that we just heard, I believe, is another gas. Yes, it's another gas from Romad in the bottom left. That's super smart. I don't know if Imphenzia has... Oh, so Imphenzia has a city, so this would be important to note. I was, like, wondering how Imphenzia's crushing so heavy. I thought it was just the top right that was giving them this. No, so there's a city right now. This gives 10 territories worth of income. So this quick industry that Imphenzia went for in the bottom right was missed, but is now paid off. So Imphenzia has 870 in the bank, making almost 600 a minute at 1,000 total income. And Romad is certainly in trouble now. The one good thing is that there's only 1 gas for Imphenzia. No, there's a second one in the top right, but that's actually not a lot. Airport for Imphenzia in the top right. Romad's out of gas, that's all that means. Imphenzia out of gas. We might keep hearing that. So here's the gas again from Imphenzia, who's realized, well, I mean, they can't even build this gas anymore. This looks dangerously close. Cruisers could attack an airport. They can attack buildings on land. They can attack units on land. But it's not, they have to be pretty close to the shore. Summer Imphenzia put down a double factory, and I knew without even looking that has to be top right, which is huge. That will cement the reason Imphenzia wins this game, I believe, is just how much economy here is being protected at this choke point. Perfect play by the strikers. I don't know if Imphenzia gets to see the refinery yet. There's anti-stealth on the refinery though, so once it's built, I believe it'll show up on their radar. 3 strikers and 2 helicopters are definitely going to be able to pick off this airport, which is like a huge... Like, it's an enormous win, I think, for Romad, but in some sense, economy-wise, it doesn't even matter. Because I'm trying to... I don't know how you could possibly get back from this point. And I don't by any means think... I mean, I think both players have been playing very well. Both players are quite good. That's the thing, and it's fun to watch a game like this. So with just 2 barracks and 1 factory, Imphenzia can't get enough units to crack this, but I don't think Imphenzia super cares. Because as long as Imphenzia can now start cutting off the top left, it's just the economy game. It'll be over. That being said, Romad's going for industry that we hear. Saws and a farm. And a 3rd factory for Imphenzia on the top right. 714 income for Romad. 1186 for Imphenzia. Yeah, so tanks from Imphenzia. Tanks would be great here because there's open field. There's not a ton of other tanks from the opponent and helicopters or strikers. I just wonder what a big bunch of tanks would do. Okay, so maybe this is like... If there's tanks in the top right here, maybe all of this will be tanks. Imphenzia, we definitely heard another town go down. With the honking. Town in the top right. And then a depot for this gas. Okay, so this is the solution Imphenzia has to only having 2 real gases. We can hear another factory going down somewhere. I assume it's top right. Interesting. Okay, so it's by this factory. Cool. Which might make Sam's. I have no idea what the plan is. But Imphenzia's reaction to this is just build a depot, which is very smart. So the depot is going to be able to hold gas. We can see that Imphenzia now has 180 possible gas. Whereas Romad has 60, because Romad has 2 refineries. Each counts for 30. This is tough for Romad. I'm sure this is hard to see as Romad too, because you just know this is... Well, actually, that'd be... Like, look at this. Romad has an answer. Romad's such a great player. Every time I play, it's like, there's... It's almost like playing 5D chess, you know? Which Romad knows quite well. They stream it on Twitch. Check it out. 1,300 income for Imphenzia, which is almost 600 more. And building a town in the top right at this point. And... Something interesting to note is that this is really the only city on the map that's viable, because all these other cities are these like weird clown cities that have the industry so far away. Like if Romad built this, there's no way this can be converted into a city without, you know, taking this whole thing, this whole bottom peninsula. Imphenzia going for more factories. Here it is in the south. This is the line in the sand protecting this refinery, which a second factory that would only build SAMs will definitely be able to get that done in time. Hodgepodge of helicopters and tanks in the top right for Imphenzia. Which one, if there's a bunch of tanks that end up getting made and Imphenzia just rolls through with like 20 tanks. and has the gas to support it via 2 depots, because there's another depot in the south, right here. Tanks will use a lot of gas, but if you have a lot of it saved up, they're very effective. And Romad's only on 1 airport, so it's not like there's a whole air force of planes ready to go. Imphenzia is getting ready to crush this position of Romads. These feel very close to build, especially since there's no air cover. And Romad's kind of picked like a perfect time to do this, to make this push. And I think Romad is going to win this, win that battle. Romad's out of gas, as we can see by the plumes of black smoke on the planes when they try to move. Like that. And I misjudged this. I don't know. Line War is such a wonderful little game. Because I can't tell who's winning. I thought that blue was winning here. I guess red is definitely going to be able to push back longer than I thought. And the 2 factories are going to cement it. Yeah, so Imphenzia is backing up. Right, so over time this doesn't work. With 3 factories in the top right and all these helicopters, Imphenzia is going to be okay. And this is the key, because all the money that Romad's made in the back of the map, Imphenzia is about to contest that very heavily. Only 2 SAMs here, which isn't enough for all these planes. Just watch how this works. Because I'm not... I think, like, the planes are going to be able to clean up all the SAMs here. So at the very worst, the planes are going to be able to kill the SAMs, and the next time they come back, they're going to be able to shoot all their missiles at ground targets. Still tons of missiles, though. Ultimately, Imphenzia is going to be able to hold that position, I think, because there's 2 more factories behind. And now a 3rd one. Sam's at the front line ready to attack artillery pieces. And yeah, this is a enormous convoy of tanks. Which has happened to me on stream before. And it's a very shocking moment when that many tanks come into vision. And you really, unless you have your own tanks, or for this many tanks, I'd say like 2 or 3 airports / airstrips worth of strikers. Or quite a few helicopters. It's very tough to deal with them. If the geography of the map doesn't favor you. As in like a mountain range between you and the tanks. Well, if the helicopters can't get this, which they can. Yeah, the striker just last hits that out of the helicopter. Helicopters have been working at it for so long and it's just yoink. Top Gun style. 1386 income for Imphenzia. 998 for Romad, which feels like it's better than it was. Romad definitely has full naval control. I like that these are transport boats. Unfortunately, some of the missile ships didn't end up being used. I mean, it's such a hard thing to like micro not building missile ships. But especially in a game where the money's so tight. Like, Romad's pulled this back. In a lot of ways. I mean, they've pulled it back. The map is glitching in the replay. That's how much they've pulled it back. Like, this is a lot of artillery. And the joke earlier about the SAMs fighting artillery, I'm somehow, like, I'm impressed. I thought this was definitely falling apart. Which I still think Romad's at a disadvantage, but making 366, I mean, Imphenzia is making about the same. And has some money in the bank, but Imphenzia is going to lose this position. Definitely going to lose at least 2 of these factories. Imphenzia still has gas. I mean, the snipe on the refinery isn't all that important, but it was still good from Romad. Here comes the tanks. Every time I switch players' views, it switches the viewpoint, and I apologize. So we got 5 helicopters, which are going to shred these artillery pieces. There'll probably only be like 2 artillery pieces left when they're done here. Although if the helicopters start attacking the helicopters, it won't work out that way. Yeah, they're only going to attack the helicopters, but you can see the DPS of helicopters. Okay, so I said 2 helicopters would be left, or 2 artillery pieces would be left. And I was totally wrong. Helicopters are quite good when they're hovering above their targets, just pounding DPS. Like, this is over, because these tanks are going to crush this. Imphenzia is going to be able to have the gas to deal with it. Romad, I want to see the lines of Romad. Like, what do you possibly do here? The defense lines are great. But this is a whole, like, 16 tanks. And these buildings, like, tanks will be very slow in forests. You can see on the tooltip on the very bottom, like, tanks specifically go way slower. But the buildings aren't that deep in the forest. And I think the tanks can probably just kill all the units first. They wouldn't even need to specifically target the buildings. It'd be great if for Imphenzia to get the helicopters and the SAMs up closer, but maybe the idea is just to snipe the airport. Oh yeah, we're looking at Romad. Oops, yeah. So the idea is to snipe the airport. And so you won't even need anti-air at this point. Well, this is quite the scene. Welcome to Line War. 2 strikers trying to take off. They probably will. The third one won't. How many tanks does it take to destroy an airport? Okay, so these 2 planes have nowhere to land. There's no airstrip, unfortunately, for Romad. Unless Romad, like, 9,000 IQ'd this and built an airstrip so that these 2 can land, which we'll find out in a second. But otherwise, this many tanks... No, there's no airstrip, and that's why those planes explode. So there was 16 tanks to start off with, and there's like 13 now or something. Imphenzia is breaking out of this position as well. I love that this is a trade route for Romad, and we can check the income. 1584 for Imphenzia and 1175 for Romad. Certainly an impressive comeback on the economy side. And Imphenzia's got a second depot. And I assume more tanks out of these factories than there are, and so this is going to be a tank landing on the top. I like that. Tanks can't land on territory unless you're, like, it is owned. So they can't create a beachhead. Infantry and other units have to land there first to claim the territory. So you very rarely see tanks in transport boats, and you can only use 1 tank in transport boat at a time. Yeah, the forest is small enough that the tanks will do great. What we heard is some building explode in the bottom right earlier, which these boats definitely killed something. I've only successfully defended this many tanks by either having like a decent amount of tanks myself and putting defensive lines around the buildings, or having like 4 airports worth of planes. So this is a very powerful move, but you can see how long it took and the amount of investment and cost to Imphenzia to build up for that long. This is going to be devastating in the top left. Because while I've been focusing too much on the bottom, this apparently has turned into like a guerrilla fight. Imphenzia's got 1 barracks just chilling in the top right. 2 I guess it's only 1 factory and a barracks in the forest. Ultimately, Imphenzia is going to be able to keep that forest. Not even cleaning up the sub-pen. Which I feel like at this point, Imphenzia would be happy to know if Romad were to be building more subs. So these boats definitely can attack this factory. That's why it's kind of beat up looking. One tank on the side of the cliff, half in the water, taking pot shots at missile boats. And it doesn't work out. Which you'd think it wouldn't work out. If I said that in real life. 1625 income for Imphenzia and 1278 for Romad, who actually is making a ton of money and has a ton of money in the bank. But ultimately, the reason they're making a ton of money, I think, is because all of this upkeep from the airport, all the units and the whatever other buildings were there, no longer exists. Yeah, this is where it's unfortunate for Romad, because Romad's not allowed to have a city here because of this play. I don't even know. Okay, so this one keeps going. Right. So maybe the deal is that, now that I see it, I don't think this one goes to this town. I think it goes past it. So one of these factories or industries is actually connected to this one. Roma's rebuilding the airports. We'll stop thinking about how ridiculous this is. Three airports on the left. And this is a great position for these airports, actually, for real, because this is the radius that they're effective. So strikers could get all the way to the north. Romad knows that this is an important part of the map. If Romad can hold this and get to this tree line, it's still looking relatively bad, but it's possible. Because now there's a trade route, potentially, or the chance to get a trade route and be relatively even. Imphenzia is now going for Navy, sandbagging some artillery around the docks, which is a great way to protect them. And here's the port for Roma, which we just heard. So over time, this is going to get 10 territories worth of income, which is going to negate this city. But Imphenzia has all the economy. Or, I mean, like a port on the far right. There's some more towns. But this push is going to be very difficult for Romad to deal with. I mean, Romad's going to be in a position where all these plains are going to have to deal with the south or the north. Not both. $1721 income for Imphenzia, who's right now like at peak of power because there's not a lot of money. The cash flow, but I mean, this is getting capped anyway, even without the planes defending it, I think. I'm again super interested to figure out then where is this connected to? Right, so this one goes from this town past this other town and then down, and then it does a hilarious crisscross to make sure. I couldn't figure out which one it is, but this one goes well, then it must be this. It must be connected to this thing. Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense, right? This one, this industry, this lumber camp or whatever is connected to this town. Mystery solved. We can feel it. There's too many Artie Sam here. Which Artie Sam isn't, you know, as we saw all game. I mean, it wasn't really Artie Sam until very end of the game. Roma's going for something sneaky. Yeah, okay, so this snipe on the town, I mean, that's a great call. That snipe on the town, if that snipe could happen, and this could somehow be held, there's 3 strikers for Romad. Which 3 strikers, unfortunately, isn't enough. I mean, 3 Sams against 3 strikers. At the very least, it would make them ineffective of dealing with the ground units. These boats are going as quick as they possibly can. But there's really not much to see because these 2 barracks and 1 factory, it's not going to be able to deal with this push. And all this economy is going to collapse. Wild game. Wild map, wild game. So in this position, like, it's a little bit better for Romad in that tanks, when they go through mountains, it's even worse for them than forests. I mean, tanks move very slowly when they're in mountains, so like these producers are a little bit safe, but numbers-wise, it doesn't really matter. 5 transport boats for Imphenzia going across. And even more transport boats on the way. Yeah, well that resupply is gonna do it. Cool. Very well played from both players. Very cool game, and thanks to Romad for dropping a link to it in stream. So I'll say the disclaimer, you know, thanks for watching. If you're interested in the game, come check out the Discord. The Line War Discord. It's full of people who are happy to chat about the game and interested in it. The explosions look kind of cool, I don't know. That's a sweet game. Cool. See you later, folks. Enjoy. Have a great evening, night, day, whatever it is. Thank you so much for the support. Peace.